Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Today I'm going to try something a little bit different. Well, probably a lot different. Unless you cheat and fast forward, nobody is going to know what we're making until we finish the project. Here are my fabric pieces, and then we need something to close up the product that we're making. It's my first time making this project as well, so we're all going to be making this together. And I'm going to slow it down, so I'll let you know when to pause the video so that you can move from your sewing table to your sewing machine and things like that. If you need to iron and stuff, feel free to pause the video at any time you like. I did put the measurements on the community tab and on our Facebook page last night, so some of you have already got your fabric cut out, which is really exciting. Without further ado, let's put all the measurements up on the screen right now. So you just need one large piece of fabric, a smaller piece of fabric. I'm using a really lightweight cotton. A rayon would be nice as well. And then you need something to close up this product that we're making, whether you use Velcro, plastic snaps, or even some metal snaps. The optional thing to use would be some interfacing, and I think I'd like to as well. Let's get started. No cheating. Now, for those that want to use interfacing, I've cut mine just a little bit smaller than my small piece of fabric, the sizes you've already seen up on the screen, and that's to allow for the seam allowance. You can use snap fasteners, the little plastic snaps. Today I'm using Velcro. My larger piece is 43 by 96 centimetres or 17 by 38 inches. You want a non-directional fabric because we are going to be folding this in half, and they'll become the back and front of your fabric. This smaller piece, we want 21.5 by 60 centimetres or 8.5 by 24 inches. And if you want to use an interfacing, you can cut that at around 21 by 58 centimetres or 8 by 23.5 inches. The only reason I'm putting this on is because I'm using Velcro, and when I pull the fabric apart, I want this to be as strong as it can be. So go and get all your bits ready. I'm going to go and turn on my heat press, get that fired up, and fuse this piece of fabric to this one here. Let's pause the video whilst we all go and do that. All right, have you got your stabiliser sorted? Let's get to it. Take this 8.5 inch piece of fabric, fold it in half, bring the raw edges to meet at the top, and go and grab yourself a plate or something with a curved edge. Now the line I'm drawing is my stitching line. I'm lining up the plate on the side edges and along the top, so we've got our fold here. If you don't like curves, you can make this a straight edge, or you can have it tapered on the diagonal as well, completely up to you. But since you guys don't know what you're doing yet, hopefully you haven't looked forward, you'll have to just follow along with a curved edge. So this curved line, we're going to cut that out. Okay, there's our long piece of fabric with a nice curve on the edge. Let's fold this in half with the right sides out. Mark a crease or put a pin in the top edge of your fabric there. And I'm just going to mark a reference line in the centre of the fabric. Use a wash away or air erasable pen. From the centre line on one side, I'm going to grab my strip of Velcro and measure 3 centimetres or 1.25 inches from the centre. And that's where I'm going to place one side of the Velcro. I like to use double-sided tape on the back of my Velcro, and this is a good way of getting rid of the stuff that you can't sew over. I just pop a piece in the centre at the back because I know I won't be sewing over that, therefore it won't gum up my needles. Peel the paper off, and I'll place my Velcro over the line that I've just made. You want to centre it across your fabric as well. So I probably should fold that in half, find the centre and line that up. So on this half we have that strip of Velcro. Take the other side of the Velcro and we'll come down to this end here with the fabric folded in half again. Mark a crease there. I'll pop some more double-sided tape onto the back of this. I'm going to place this strip of Velcro 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch from the outside edge and pop that in place. You just want to make sure that the Velcro isn't too long that it goes over your stitching area here. We're going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance or 5 or 6 millimeters. Now we need the other piece of Velcro, and we go back to the center here, fold it in half and find that center again, separate the Velcro, and from that center line that we've marked, we'll measure 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch. So we can place that over the center. Now you just want to double check. Here I've got the rough side, here's the rough side, and here's the smooth side of the Velcro. The other smooth side will be going onto the large piece of fabric in a moment. Let's set this aside. This is my larger piece. I've still got this intact, so I haven't cut my 4-inch strips off yet. So I'm just going to bring the raw edges up together. I've got 17 inches across here. And with the 2 layers of fabric here, these are the raw edges. I'm going to cut 2 pieces at once that measure 4 inches or 10 centimeters wide. We'll set these 2 pieces aside just for a few moments, and we're going to pop the Velcro onto the front of this piece of fabric. So open that out. Let's find the center. This is the right side faced up, so at the back here we've got the wrong side of the fabric, even though we can't tell. I've marked the center of my fabric here. From the top edge we're going to measure down 5 inches or 13 centimeters. And that's where we're going to place the other piece of Velcro. So across the center and 5 inches from the top. How's everybody going so far? Okay, we have our narrow strip of fabric with our 3 strips of Velcro. We've got our larger piece of fabric with our Velcro on it as well. Let's set those aside for a moment. Let's take these 2 pieces of fabric. I've got the wrong side facing up this time. So let's pause right here whilst you get your iron and your ironing mat set up. All right, so it's pretty obvious that these are likely to be handles. What we're going to do is fold the fabric in half. This is the wrong side and the right side. Probably should have used another piece of fabric. We'll fold that in half. Press that. If you really want to stabilise this, you can. I'd just use a lightweight interfacing for it, but this is going to be a lightweight product, so we really don't need to. Then bring the raw edges in and iron that again. Do the same for the other side. And then we can bring these edges in again. And we've got a nice handle. And once again, we'll fold these edges into the center. If you did want to use interfacing or a stabilizer on the inside of your handles, I would just cut it at 1 inch and that'll be enough. So what we're doing at the moment is getting a few things prepared so that we can go and do several steps over at the sewing machine without having to go back and forth all the time. All right, these 2 strips are ready. I'll set the iron aside just for a few minutes. We'll get this larger piece of fabric prepared as well. On the short edge, we're going to measure 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And on the other short edge, we'll do the same and mark a line. Once again, this is the wrong side faced up. Grab the raw edge here and fold that up to the line that we've marked. And we're going to press this fold. And you'll see that line that I've marked has disappeared. The heat of the iron renders this ink invisible. Okay, we've got our first fold. Now we're going to fold this up 1 more inch or another 2.5 centimeters. So you're just folding it onto itself. We'll press that. There's our double folded hem along here. Let's do the same at the other end. So fold the raw edge up to that 2-inch line that we've made, and by doing that we're actually creating a 1-inch fold because you're basically halving the distance. from the outside edge to the drawn line. And the drawn line also becomes our finished edge. And we'll fold this edge up again. You can feel the raw edge underneath, so you don't have to go and measure it. Now that we've got those things prepared, let's go to the machine. We're going to sew the Velcro on here, and my narrow strips have disappeared. Here we go. Let's sew down both long edge of these two narrow strips. You can pause here whilst you go and get yourself set up on your sewing machine, and I will go and do the same. I've got my machine threaded. I'm just using a white thread for this because my Velcro is white and I can't be bothered changing. We'll sew around this rectangle. This is the big piece of fabric, and then we'll do the same on the other three. Oops. Okay, you weren't supposed to see that. And one more bit of Velcro. Oops, we've done that one. Okay, all the Velcro's done. Let's do our handles. So I do like to start with the open side first. And I'm just going to chain piece both of them together. All that means is that when I finish one strip, I add the next one straight on after it without cutting any thread. Saves a lot of time. You can turn around and come back up the other side. When you're working with longer handles, it can cause a lot of twisting, so I do like to come back to the beginning and start at the top again and then do the other side. Okay, let's go back to our table. Okay, we've got all of our bits ready. Let's take this long narrow piece and bring the right sides together. And what we're going to do is sew up the curve and the side edges. I'm going to leave an opening for turning through on one side. So I'll stitch along here, around the curve and back down the other side. And even though my stabiliser is a little bit narrow, I'm still just going to be using 1/4 inch seam allowance. So from here, back stitch here, leave a gap, back stitch again here, go slowly around the curve and come up all the way to the other end. Whilst we're at the machine, we're going to clip our curve. We're going to trim the corner bit off here. Then we're going to turn it the right way out. And on the folded edge at the top, we'll do a top stitch. We'll do that in a moment. Let's take our fabric piece. We've got the folds already pressed in place. And I'm just going to mark the centre once again. From the centre out, we're going to measure 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimetres. Place the raw edge of your handle to the top where the raw edge is. We'll keep that nice and flat as you come around to the other side. And we'll do another 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimetres on the other side of the centre. Once you've done that, grab the other end of your fabric. We'll repeat that for the other end. Fold it in half again, and we'll place the other handle the same distance from the centre. And I'm lining up the inside handle at 2.5 inches from the centre. If you're concerned that the handles aren't going to stay in place whilst we do the folds, we can go and sew this at the machine now. And just for the purpose of the exercise, why don't we do that anyway? So just a quick stitch straight across the handles. Seam allowance doesn't matter because all this will be folded under. All right, back to the table. Okay, we've got our handles in place. Let's fold this fabric back over again, lay it out nice and flat. We've got that first 1 inch fold. And then we're going to fold that over again. And you can see what that's done. That's secured the handle in between the layers of fabric. And we've got a double layer of fabric there. And then your handle is going to come forward or come out to the top of the bag. And it's never going to go anywhere. What we can do on this end is sew along the bottom edge and then sew along the top edge. So once again, first fold it over one more time, allow your handles to sit nice and flat underneath, and then bring the handle back over that fold, find the other end and just make sure they line up. Looking good. Let's go back to the machine now. We'll sew down this long edge and this one, do the same on the other end. We'll also take this piece here and we'll sew around here, making sure we leave an opening. Back to the machine. So I'm starting at the top edge where the fold is, and I'll backstitch. I'll backstitch here, so I've come down about 2 inches. I'll leave an opening of 3 or 4 fingers width. Start again with a backstitch. And then we'll go slowly around the curve. So as you're coming up around the curve, the edge of my foot is what I'm using as my guide, so I'm going to guide that along the edge of the fabric. Sometimes you'll need to lift your foot to help turn your work. I haven't folded mine properly, but it's not going to be a problem. So if you go slowly, it'll be much easier to manipulate the fabric as you go around the curve. Now that we've done that, we want to trim the corners here. And where the curve is, we're going to clip into the edges. You want to clip close to the stitching line, but not through it. And this will help relax the fabric in the curve and make it much easier to have it sitting nice and flat when you turn it the right way. Let's find the opening and we'll turn this the right way. You want to poke out the corners and you also want to even out the curve. Okay, I'm just going to pause the video here so that we can all go and turn this the right way around and poke out our curves and have it looking nicely. In fact, I feel like I should iron this, so let's go back and do that. Poke out all your corners and then smooth out the curve. And once you're happy with all of that, we'll press those edges. I'm being careful not to iron the velcro. The raw edge on the side here, I just want to fold that under as well. Press those edges together so that looks nice. I know it's pretty obvious what we're making, but you don't know what kind yet, do you? It's going to be something really simple and very useful as well. Let's go and top stitch the straight edge only. We don't need to do the curve or the outside edge at this stage. We'll also finish up the other piece of fabric with the handles on it. All right, just a quick stitch straight across the straight edge. We can set that one aside. Let's grab these folded edges and we'll sew that in place as well now. So I'm starting at the bottom edge because that'll secure all the layers together, and if there are any wrinkles I can manipulate it at the top. This is going to be one of those projects you can make heaps of. I think they would actually do really well in the shop as well, though I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet. Let's go to the other side. And the last row. And back to the table it is. Now we haven't put the iron away yet because we will be needing that shortly. Okay, we've got our handles attached to the top of our fabric and we've got this curved piece as well. We've got the side that has 2 pieces of Velcro on it, and this side just has the one. With the side that has the 2 pieces, let's go to our larger piece of fabric, open that out, and we're just going to work with one side. Let's flip this around the right way to the side that has the Velcro. So we've got our Velcro on the large piece of fabric. This one has both pieces. I've got the soft side here and the rough side here. I'm going to place that over the top and match up those 2 pieces of Velcro. And that's where this piece of fabric will sit. I'll just line up the edges of the Velcro there and then fold that back and straighten that up. Around about 2 1/4 inches or 5.5 centimetres from the top. We can pin that in place. So that you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just going to grab this piece of fabric because these layers are very hard to distinguish one from the other. And I just want to place this here just so that you can see what's happening. We've got the curved edge of the fabric here. So where you've got the straight edge coming into the curve, mark that with a pin. And this is going to become a flap, so we don't actually want to sew over this. I've got my opening on the side here. And I guess in hindsight, we could have gone and top stitched just the curve as well. So if you want to go back and do that, you can. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't think it needs it. As long as you've got your opening along the side here somewhere, everything will be fine. So I've pinned the side edges. I'm leaving this section. So what I'm going to do is remove that piece of fabric. I'll place my pins in on the side here. And from one end to the other, I'm going to mark a line, and this is going to become my stitching line. So I'm not sure if you can see that blue line there. We'll start along the top here, back stitch, reinforce the top corner really well. Come all the way down, we'll sew this opening closed. Come down until you get to this pin here and this line. We can back stitch here and then turn around and back stitch there. Come across, do the same. And up, finishing at the top of the pocket just here with a back stitch as well. Make sure that's really secure. That will be a stress point in your product later. Let's go and do that. So I'm starting at the top of the pocket here. I'll back stitch and then I'll back stitch a couple. I'll go forward and back a couple more times. I'll back stitch a couple of stitches, turn the work, and I'm going to sew straight over that marked line. Forward 2, back 2. Back 2, forward 2. And the pocket's done. Back to our cutting table. All right, let's have a look at this. We've got our flap sewn in place here, so it's just a straight stitch along here. Both side edges are done. We've left the top edge open and you've got a pocket in the side here. Now, I'm wondering how many of you have resisted the urge so far to jump ahead and see what the finished product is. And I'll be honest, there's no way I could do it. I hate suspense. I'd have to look. Now we can do our last 2 seams. We're going to place the fabric wrong side together. So this pocket will be on the outside. Line up the top edges. Haven't lined up my handles very well, have I? So on the inside here, we've got the wrong side showing. So if we were working with this piece of fabric, we'd have our printed fabric faced out and the wrong sides together like this. Okay, we've got the top edge folded in twice. Line up the side edge and pin that together. We don't need to leave any openings because we're not lining this product. So double check that you've got your fabric the right way. We've got our pocket piece facing out. I'm going to start sewing from the folded edge, and I'm going to sew with 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is only about 5 or 6 mil, and we'll do that along both side edges. Then we'll give this a really good press. You can use a wider seam if you want to, but we're going to be trimming it back. And we'll repeat for the other side. Starting from the fold again. Okay, we're nearly finished. Let's give this a really good press. We've got our raw edges facing the outside at the moment. You want to press at this stage because we're going to do one more seam, and you want to get out any wrinkles or puckers or stretches or anything that you might have caused when you were sewing. It'll give you a nicer finish when we do the last seam. And we're going to do a French seam, which means that we've got to get this raw edge here tucked in nicely on the inside of the bag. Oops, it's a bag. I've been trying to avoid saying that for the whole video. I'm sure most of you have guessed that's what it is, but you don't know what sort yet. What I've done here is lined up a 1/8 inch mark on my stitching line, and I'm just going to trim off the excess fabric here. So all I want is this seam to be trimmed down from 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch, which is about 3 millimeters. And really, that doesn't matter so much either, as long as in the next step you make sure that your stitching line is wider than the allowance that you've made. Once again, I've lined up 1/8 inch. If you don't have a rotary cutter, that's not a problem. Just draw a line down the edge here, and then you can cut this out with your scissors. It just takes a little longer, that's all. Let's turn our bag inside out, and as you do that you want to make sure you poke those corners out nicely, but don't poke a hole in the fabric. And we're going to iron this side as well, just so that the side seams sit nice and flat, and we'll just poke out that corner gently so that you've got a nice square corner. Let's give that one final press. So I like to just roll the edges over to the side. You want the seam sitting right on the very edge of your fabric. It's important to do that. We're going to be hiding that raw edge on the other side, and the straighter you have this now, the better you'll be able to hide that seam. Okay, ready to do our last row of stitching. On the inside of the bag you can see a really narrow raw edge. That's 1/8 inch, or about 3 millimeters. We're going to sew from this side now, which is the inside, and you want to be able to catch that 1/8 inch seam underneath. If you've never done French seams before, then allow yourself at least 6 millimeters or a quarter of an inch to be able to catch that seam. Then you won't have any of those raw edges poking out. To make things easier for myself and for any beginners, I'm going to sew the two side seams with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, or 1 centimeter. That's going to make sure I've caught every part of the stitching, just in case I haven't cut the fabric properly. For starting again from the fold, we'll do a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam all the way along the side. Okay, just about finished. At the top you can backstitch, flip it over, and we'll do the other side. Then we've finished. Okay, let's have a look and see how this thing goes together. Turn this the right way around. Check your seams to make sure you don't have any straggly bits showing on the sides. I'm not actually very good at French seams, and I tend to have straggly bits like you see on the end here. But those can be easily trimmed off. I'll get my ironing mat one more time and we'll give that a good press. Then you can see how this works. So at this stage we have the bag right side out. I'll press those edges Okay, let's have a look and see how this has all turned out. So obviously we've made a bag. We've made a really lightweight shopping tote, and it's going to be one of those foldable bags that you can take with you whenever you're out and about. We've got a really large pocket on the inside here. Turn it so that the pocket is face down. Bring the side edges in until they can't go any further. So they're going to be sitting within that pocket on the other side. Bring your handles over. Just continue the fold down until you get to the top edge of our pocket. This bottom edge here, you're going to fold that up until you get to that straight stitch that we've done at the bottom of the flap. We'll bring this pocket edge up to meet this edge. You can see what's happening now, can't you? And then we can fold this over and we have a nice little clutch bag. How cute is that? Very simple to make. I think this is really functional because you don't have to have this inside a bag. You can actually use it as your bag. Pop your phone inside there. You can even let it go further down, deep into the depths of your pocket. Your keys can be in there. Fold it back over again. Close that up. And you can take that with you when you go shopping. Then once you've made your purchases, open the bag up. You've still got your phone in here or your credit cards. That's all nice and secure on the inside. And you've got plenty of room for your shopping on the inside. And nice neat edges after having done your French seams. Well, what do you think? How cute is this little bag? It just looks like a nice little clutch that you can hold in your hand really comfortably. You don't have to worry about lugging any bags inside your bags. You can just take this as it is. It's easy enough to keep something small like your phone or keys or cards. When you are ready to carry everything, open it up and there you have a really cute little shopping tote, and you've still got the storage space for your phone, keys, cards, wallets, whatever you want to have in there. Chris showed this to me and I fell in love with the idea, so I had to make it. Chris found this little bag just the other day when he was cleaning out the carport. And what it is a bag from, it's probably from the 90s or early 2000s. It's got a piece of Velcro on the front. Open it out and you've got the same sort of bag that we've just made. The only difference is that this has actually got bindings around the edge. You know how much I hate doing bindings. So what I've done is a folded pocket to self-line it. And the additional thing I've done is put Velcro on the inside so that you can securely put your purse or keys and things like that in there as well. From this to this, we have a perfectly functional fold-up bag. I hope you've enjoyed this mystery project. I'd love to know how many of you have resisted the urge to fast forward and see what the actual project is. I doubt that many people could do that. I know I couldn't. If you're on Facebook, I'd love to see your finished projects. I'm off to edit the video now, then I'm off to table tennis. I'll see what you guys have done tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.